Wow, breaking news. I didn't see this coming. So the Knicks and Timberwolves do a trade. The Knicks receive Karl-Anthony Towns. The Timberwolves receive Donte DiVincenzo and Julius Randle. Let me say this. I'll start with the Knicks. I was actually curious as to see how all these forwards were going to play out on the team. I felt like with OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, I think he's listed at the forward spot sometimes too, and Julius Randle, I thought there was a logjam there. And so I'm not surprised in terms of them wanting a center, or at least somebody who's a bit more capable at playing center. Technically, they got Towns at power forward as well, but he's a legit 7-footer. He can space the floor out. He's more of a consistent shooter than a Julius Randle. And there's been times where we know he said Karl-Anthony Towns that he's the best shooting big man in history or something along those lines. I'm kind of paraphrasing. And on top of that, let's be honest, ever since Jalen Brunson joined the Knicks, he kind of took over from Julius Randle. With Julius Randle being injured and Jalen kind of holding it down himself, still having the team afloat, you kind of felt like this was coming, or they were going to see how Randle would integrate back with the team and then move from there. But the fact that they did this trade now, again, I'm just really surprised. In terms of how this fits with the New York Knicks, I got my thoughts on the Minnesota Timberwolves that's coming up. Let me just go a little bit more deeper into this. You know, when you look at Julius Randle, he handled the ball quite a bit, right? He wasn't someone that just played off the ball. He kind of like dribbling, doing his thing with the playmaking. And you had a Jalen Brunson doing that already. So I think with this move, it creates more space for Jalen Brunson to say, look, everyone play off the ball. Let me create. We're running this whole show through me. It's not even a question anymore. But I do got another question I want to ask y'all, ironically. Is Jalen Brunson a number one option on a championship team? Is he somebody that you want to lead your team? You pay him max dollars and build a whole team around him. Is he good enough to get you at the top of the Eastern Conference, consistently making the playoffs over and over again? Yes, I believe he's that good. But there's a difference between a star player that can get you to the playoffs versus a superstar that will get you to the NBA Finals and give you a legitimate chance to win. That is the question that I'm wondering. Y'all can hit me up in the comment section when it comes to that. One last thing with Karl-Anthony Towns, he's now the highest paid player on the New York Knicks. He's on a huge contract. As a matter of fact, when I got the news that this trade was about to happen and they were still trying to finalize it, the details weren't out as of yet. I was wondering, well, who is the Knicks going to give up? Karl-Anthony Towns is not on a small contract. Then it just made sense. It got to be Randle and somebody else. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Karl-Anthony Towns to be that second option, a sidekick to Jalen Brunson, and really deliver, especially in a market like New York. They're going to expect a lot of big things from him, to say the least. Also, losing Donte DiVincenzo, that's going to hurt the Knicks a bit too. Offline, I was kind of joking with people when I was watching the New York Knicks this playoffs that Jalen Brunson, Donte, and Josh Hart were their big three. They stood out to me the most when I was watching the Knicks. Of course, I believe OG was dealing with injuries. Julius Randle was out. Just a lot of the hustle, playmaking, and shot creating, shot making that I saw from Josh Hart. Well, Josh Hart more defensively, but DiVincenzo was giving you some decent defense as well as good offense. They're going to have to find another guard to replace that. Maybe a Cameron Payne could give you something, hopefully. I don't know. Really, the New York Knicks have lost two key role players this summer that they could have used to strengthen their roster outside of the starting lineup. Isaiah Hartenstein and now Donte. It'll be interesting to see how they replace that. Let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves right now on their side of things. I thought they were going to keep that core and try to run it a little bit more. I'm a little bit surprised they traded Karl-Anthony Towns. Then again, he's been with the team since the 2015-16 season, before Anthony Edwards was drafted in the 2020 NBA draft. The Minnesota Timberwolves only made the playoffs once with Karl-Anthony Towns on the squad, and that was as an 8th seed with Jimmy Butler. Maybe it was just a new direction they wanted to go into completely. I just thought, given the fact Karl-Anthony Towns was very accepting of Anthony Edwards being the number one option. There's a clip of him saying, I keep telling Anthony Edwards, you're going to be the face of the league. He had no problem in terms of getting along with him. I'm sure they had a great chemistry. It's going to be interesting as to how Anthony Edwards takes his trade or how he looks at it. If the Timberwolves were going to trade somebody, though, I was thinking it was going to be Rudy Gobert, given a lot of the criticism he got with his defense. You heard Kendrick Perkins on a clip say that he was a better defensive player than Rudy Gobert in the playoffs. Of course, Shaquille O'Neal has said a lot about Rudy not living up to expectations. During the Dallas series, there was a lot of talk about Rudy being a defensive liability. Every time he tried to switch on one of the guards or a player on the perimeter, it was to the point, I remember watching Draymond Green on Inside the NBA. He was saying, yo, you got to bench Rudy Gobert and maybe have Naz Reid come in the game because he could provide more spacing, shooting, and he's a lot more mobile on the defensive end in terms of at least guarding the perimeter players and not being cooked in a pick and roll or some mismatch kind of situation. Kyle Anderson was another name they suggested to come into the starting lineup over Rudy. I'm not trying to make this all about him. I'm just saying, given the criticism he was taking and the contract that he's on being more movable, cheaper, I figured if anybody was going to be moved, it would have been him. I was of the mindset, keep going with this Timberwolves team for a couple more years or so, see how it goes. I also was looking at their point guard position, right? Mike Conley is about to retire soon. They needed a point guard, to me, in my opinion. They never needed another big man or power forward. I'm very curious as to how this is going to work. I looked at the combination of Rudy and Karl-Anthony Towns to work much better than Rudy and Julius Randle. As I was saying before, you got a guy like Cat who can space the floor. Rudy's not coming out of the paint. He's kind of just waiting around the rim for an easy lob, a putback, jam, offensive rebound. That's his game. Rarely do you see him come out of the paint and do something with the ball. Now, as I'm saying this, let me make this clear. I'm not saying Julius Randle can't shoot. I've seen games where he made 5, 6 three-pointers. He's just out there jacking it up. It's going in. I just like the idea of Karl paired with Rudy for that reason much better. When we're talking about spacing, the only situation I can see that happening now is if Julius Randle has the ball at the top of the key. He's kind of playing a point forward situation. You got Anthony Edwards on another side of the three-point line with other perimeter players. If that's not the case and you have Anthony Edwards working the ball at the top of the key or, playing point guard, I can see teams playing variations of zone defenses and forcing the Timberwolves to really try to shoot. My last point I'll say about Julius Randle, I do think he's a better option if we're talking about an offensive explosion, somebody who you could rely on to get you 30 or even 40 points, give Anthony Edwards some rest, put the team on his back, run some plays for him, have him create his own shot. Yes, in terms of that kind of philosophy, Julius Randle is a better option. He also plays better defense as well. He's a two-way kind of guy. If we're talking about a sidekick to Anthony Edwards, this makes more sense. I can see this working out in terms of potential and talent. I'm just wondering about the fit, how this will match. That's what I'm kind of thinking. Y'all let me know in the comment section though. How are you feeling about this trade? Who won? Are you liking the Timberwolves side of it? The Knicks? Did nobody win? Let me know in the comment section. This is huge news. Again, nobody was expecting this. And as always, salute for listening. Peace.